Hello and welcome once again to yet another episode of the ASI Biz-Exchange. This is a podcast where we try to imagine doing business in a different way, in a progressive, in a successful way on the African continent. We've said it before that this is where African excellence meets global innovation. And we try to speak to various business people to try and understand what insights they've drawn from their experience and their journeys as entrepreneurs, as business people of all varieties. We continue our conversation, and this is episode 5 of our conversation around ETAs, entrepreneurship through acquisition. And as always, I have my partner in crime, my co-host, Tishalan Pillay. Tish, good afternoon to you, and thanks very much for joining us once again.
Thanks, Aubrey. It's been a while. Glad to be back. And I'm really excited about today's episode, especially because we've got Herman de Vries from the ASI ecosystem joining us today. And I think it'll be good to take the audience through a more practical story of how the model actually plays out in real life. So far, we've been giving a theoretical sort of framework around it. So really keen for today's episode.
Herman de Vries is the CEO of ASI Connect, one of the verticals at ASI. Herman, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Aubrey. It's great to be here.
So you probably heard the whole story about entrepreneurship through acquisitions. It's a conversation we've been having now for the last 5 episodes. I'm interested to understand, at least from you, how, first of all, ASI Connect fits within the whole ecosystem of the ASI family.
Okay, so ASI Connect fits into a third vertical within the ASI Group. First being ASI Financial Services, then ASI Property, and thirdly ASI Connect. It's also the youngest vertical within the group, but I firmly believe quite soon will be the strongest as well.
And I remember having a conversation with Anthony, the CEO, Tish, about how perhaps it wasn't planned that way, but how these verticals now are such a natural progression of the very character of the whole ASI group.
No, of course. I think we've touched on it before, where if you look at South Africa and Africa, our biggest strength is the youth. The population average age is about 20 years old. So if you think about that demographic, the most important, most pivotal areas of their development and the continent's development is definitely in financial literacy, under financial services, under property, because all of these young people will need a home to live in. And thirdly, connectivity, probably the most important one, which is why Herman is confidently saying that it's going to be the strongest. All of these people have to be connected. They need to be able to communicate, and they need to be able to transact with each other.
I suppose for you as ASI Director of Marketing and Sales, that gives you a great value proposition for the whole group.
Of course, especially because our focus as a group is on community upliftment and trust. So I think by serving the youth of the continent, it ties in so well with our mission, but also our message, to the market as well.
Herman, one of the things that I have loved about this idea of entrepreneurship through acquisition is the idea that no one gets left behind.
100%.
In other words, the founder of the business that we are trying to keep within the ecosystem, within the economy of the country and of the continent, is not going to get left behind. The searcher who's looking to enter into that business is not going to get left behind. But also ASI as the incubation sort of variable or component of all of this is not getting left behind, but it gets to use its expertise in midwifing a new legacy for the new business. Tell us about the journey of your business, ASI Connect, and how it came to be connected to ASI.
ASI Connect got various building blocks to it. The first significant building block is a company called Interconnect Systems. The company was formed 40 years ago, run by 2 founders for the bulk of that time, reaching an age of retirement and unfortunately not having the plans in place. How do we transition this? How do we keep the legacy of this entity, of this enterprise? How do we keep that legacy going? And at that point in time, I was lucky enough to be part of the management team running the business. And we attempted our best to be that next generation. So through a management buyout, to take over the running and operations of that business by buying out the founder. Unfortunately, in our ignorance, if I can call it that, we didn't structure it correctly. We didn't have a big brother to assist us through. And that's where ASI and the ETA came in. Brought in funding to assist with the deal and the transition, to recapitalize the business.
How long ago was this?
This is 2 years ago. And to bring that knowledge and that support and the support services around it to make sure that transition runs smooth. So where we've did it the first time on ourselves and learned the school fees from that and paid the school fees, now the second time around, we did this in a structured way that is an example and a cookie cutter method that could be used for further transactions.
I love the idea of school fees in this conversation. The school fees that business people pay in business in order to gain deep insights. Maybe, Tish, just for those of our listeners that aren't fully aware of the ETA model, just in broad terms, before we continue with Herman's story, because I'm interested in some of those school fees that were paid. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I love the mention of school fees as well, because it seems to be a paradigm on the African continent that, if you go to school and if you get your qualification at a tertiary institute, the world's your oyster and success is just going to knock it at your door and arrive on your doorstep. But, what Herman is talking about is a different kind of school fees that you pay in experience and through struggle and through adversity. And it gives you the qualification at the end of the day, not something that you've learned from a textbook represented on a piece of paper, but how you operate as a business owner. And, it gives you skills such as grit and resilience. So, Herman has explained the model of ETA search funding quite succinctly in, him being an example of a searcher within a company that was founder-led. So essentially that's what it is. It's empowering a younger, talented, and somewhat experienced professional to be able to purchase a business from a retiring founder that doesn't have a succession plan, and to ensure that the founder's legacy remains intact. He realizes his value in terms of a capital payout, which represents all of his years of hard work.
And that's what I was referring to when I said the founder doesn't get left behind. So the value is realized upfront rather than some promise later on in the journey. Yeah, for me that's very, very important, specifically from the founder's perspective. Yeah.
Exactly right. So it's a model that brings, all the pieces of the economy into one sort of, I would say, perfect structure, whereby all parties benefit and none are left behind, in your words, as you said.
Perfect structure, but an imperfect process, as you already explained, that perhaps the experience wasn't there, the structure wasn't put together in the most optimal sort of way. Give me a sense of what you're talking about, some of the discomforts that you experienced as you went into this journey.
For us in the initial management buyout, we structured the deal with cash up front to the founder for a portion, and then the balance of the capital payout over a 3-year period, with the belief that we're able to fund that out of the profits of the business. And unfortunately, it hit a tough time in the economy, and unfortunately there was a downturn, and we did not get to the profit levels that we were hoping for to be able to pay back that cash on a monthly basis. So that quickly ate up runway and ate up reserves. And also the mistake that a lot of founder-led businesses make is that the company becomes their own bank wallet. Out of the business, there's very little reserves for the tough times. So we bought a company with very little reserves. When things got tough, we ran into significant problems. So we didn't mitigate the cash flow issues. We didn't mitigate the risk for the exiting founder. What is the alternative if he cannot get his money? So there's a number of things that as we spoke about the school fees, that now having been through it, realized that we did wrong. But then luckily with the acquisition of ASI into the business, it was a very solid process to make sure we address all those risks. And ASI, they are the experts. ASI Capital, they're the experts in putting together these deals. So every last risk, between Anthony and Justin and the team, they addressed and put a plan in place to mitigate that. So through that, we've been able to return the business to profitability levels we've never seen probably in the last 10 years. And that's from a turnaround from making significant losses in our previous financial year. Having that in place, having a proper plan in place, and having the support of a partner. So it's not just an equity partner that comes in, put in the cash, and we demand X returns. They walked the road with us, they supported us, and made sure that we had a profitable turnaround.
When you took over as a young management team that was taking over this legacy business, did the founder stay during that time? Was the agreement that the founder would stay and be part of the running of the business in order to sweat out the profits that would pay him? Was that part of the
agreement? So it wasn't part of the gentleman was at retirement age and wanted to retire and do his woodwork and the things that he enjoy most in life.
See, the reason why I asked that, Tish, is because most such deals have failed precisely because of that. That most deals of this nature have failed because the founder who understood the business, who had the networks, who had the relationships, steps out of the business, and the business is run on the premise that it has been profitable. But most of the time it's because the founder was always present. How do we mitigate against that issue as ASI?
So I think Herman touched on it as well. It's not just a capital injection to purchase the business and then, ASI sits back and waits for returns. We get involved in the process, even to the point where the role of coach, and not just for, the people in the business that we've acquired or the new operator and the new leader of that business, but also for the founder as well. And hence why I say it's a perfect model, but it's also got some imperfections whereby, you're bringing all these parties together and, each one theoretically should benefit from the model. But equally, it's a double-edged sword whereby you've got multiple parties to manage and make sure that the process does go smooth.
And I think also founders, they are fantastic at running their businesses. They've got a skill set, they've identified an opportunity in the market, but they are not business people or corporate finance people by any stretch of the imagination.
The entrepreneurs.
So, and you'll work till the day that you cannot work anymore. But it's not natural to start thinking, okay, but how do I create this legacy for this thing for a next generation? And that's why, for a founder now with the ETA fund, it creates that there's a process that I need to walk. And it's not overnight. Like you say, it's probably a 5-year process. Like, let's find that next generation of searcher that come in to take over the business and running the business, but I'm still there to shadow and support. And in that process, ensure proper revenues are retained, etc. Because often that founder is the face of the business. I founded in our space, where specifically around the data center environment at the banks, the founder was the most trusted individual in the country. And it was a big knock not having him on board anymore. So you need to manage that risk as well and have that transition, because it could have a significant impact on the livelihood of the business if suddenly that disappears.
I'm getting the sense that part of the bravery for you guys as searchers at the time to even make the proposal to take over the business was precisely because the business was profitable.
Yeah.
What were the blind spots that you guys didn't see, that in retrospect you see that this is essential for a business, especially of that nature, to succeed, but blind spots that you didn't perceive at the time because the business was doing well, the founder was there, you guys were working hard as the management team to realize whatever value the business could realize, but clearly there were some blind spots.
Yeah. So I think the major thing is the principle, not all growth is good. You need to grow in your core competence. You need to understand what it is that you are the best at, and you focus the growth on that. We started chasing growth for the sake of growing and increasing headcount, increasing turnover, and it wasn't sustainable business. So we increased the business by most likely about 25 to 30% in less than 2 years. And specifically that part of a business was around electricity and backup power. And then when load shedding stopped and the demand increased for these backup power solutions, we were sitting on a lot of resource and capital that we've invested and couldn't cut back quickly enough.
So basically, the problem that you were servicing that brought you value stopped being a problem.
Stop being a problem.
And the reality is that all businesses are about trying to solve a problem.
Yes.
But once the problem isn't there, then, the business's relevance becomes quite an issue.
100%.
What role did ASI Capital then play in helping you focus and really get you to be the business that you are now?
Yeah. So with the help of ASI Capital, we put together a 10-point plan for a turnaround. Practical things like consider the footprint. We had 17 branches across the country. Is that the best way to service our national customers? Or could we do it with 11? It's currently being done out of 11. So it's to cut that overhead. What are the core competence of the business? And focus on that. Areas that's not core, do you keep on employing people for that, or do you use a subcontractor model? So practical steps like that to turn it around. And that was great guidance. And also just to run the business lean, mean and frugal, and especially in times like this. We've gone through the tough times in 2024 when tough times hit, and like I mentioned earlier, we were maybe not sitting on significant reserves, but a lot of companies that had the reserves back then are now, they've burned through those reserves. And we're seeing in the market, companies going through that exact same strain at this point in time.
That must have been strain, I suppose, psychologically for you guys as the leadership of the business, in that, 5 branches needed to be sort of culled.
Yeah.
What did that do for interpersonal relationships within the organization?
It was a tough time for the business. As leadership, it's a period that we never would want to have again. If I never have to sit in a Section 189 meeting again in my life, that'll be fantastic. It was a difficult time, but it also showed you who the people is really in your corner. There's people that rallied together and took significant pay cuts to reduce OPEX and get the company through tough times, but still put shoulder to the wheel and gave everything. So as much as there was people that felt maybe left behind, there are so many more people that actually proved what they're worth and their trust and their belonging in the company.
And ASI Connect is a business now that has better prospects for success in the future, right?
For sure. It is perfectly poised for growth now. Through this ETA, we're hoping to onboard more companies within the vertical to build out that service stack and service capability across the country and across vertical and specific sectors. But it's an exciting time.
Tish, I think for me, the important thing is the fact that, all of the ingredients can be there to bake a cake. The flour's there, the milk is there, the butter's there. But it has to be put together in a particular way in order for it to produce the desired cake. It's not just a matter of having the required ingredients. And I suppose that's where ASI plays the key role in understanding how to put the ingredients in a particular way in order to produce a particular product.
Exactly. When people hear of funds that are available, the first thing that you think of is, there's a lot of capital up for grabs. I've got a business model, or I want to buy a business. I could leverage this capital. But sometimes, most of the time, the capital is not the issue. The advice and the mentorship, the process that, somebody else has paid school fees, ASI Group, ASI Capital, Anthony Governor, our CEO, he's already paid the school fees. So you can leapfrog that and leverage off of his experience and get your business to scale much faster. I think Herman is also a perfect example of the beauty of the ETA Search Fund model, in that you would expect a CEO of a business, and especially a business as large as ASI Connect, nationwide footprint, and offering a service that's quite a difficult thing, in a difficult market, laying cables, etc. But you would expect, somebody to have an MBA, or, to have ran businesses before, started businesses before. But Herman, funny enough, was the CFO of the business. And I think that's a great example for the listeners out there that, as a searcher, you can come from any department within the business, any level within the business, any experience level, qualification, whatever the case may be. But with the right baker and the right ingredients, I mean, you can make the most beautiful cake anyone's ever seen.
Herman, as we come to a close of our portion of this conversation, you were a searcher at some point.
Yeah.
And you have understood what were some of the difficulties and perhaps the oversights that a founder would have experienced. Some of the perhaps missteps that a founder would have experienced. You're now at the helm of ASI Connect. In many ways, you are now the man on top, right? What should a founder who is looking to move to the next phase of the legacy of their business be looking for in terms of a searcher? The truth is also that you were a searcher too.
Yeah.
Right. If you had been a founder at that time, if you had been the man who had been the founder of your business right at the beginning, what would you have been looking for in a searcher? And what kind of mindset does a founder need to have in order for them to find the right searcher? Do you get my question?
I get it.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is it has to be intentional. It's not something that's going to happen by accident.
Organically.
But ours somewhat did happen organically, but I think it is the exception. So you have to be intentional that what is the legacy you want to leave for your business? And quite often family-run businesses, the founders, in more than half the instances, they don't want their kids to be running the businesses because they know it would not be the right thing for the entity. So, as I said, be intentional and then start early. Grow that, if you believe person or X capabilities is going to be the best for this business, start identifying those people early and grow them into that person.
I imagine it would involve a lot of thinking about what does the business actually need.
For
right?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because there comes a point when it's not about you. Your legacy will be there, but it's not for the business. Is this going to be a 40-year-old business like ours, or is it going to be a 140-year-old business? I want it to be a 140-year-old business. But that takes intentionality, and it takes the planning and the right people to be on board and come on board and that handover. And to then, as a founder, to be able to get to a point where you realize, I'm not the face of this business anymore. Because as long as you keep on holding on to that and wanting to be the face of the business, you're not allowing the growth and the step up into that next generation.
Have you started the process of being intentional about the next phase of ASI Connect yourself?
So yes, we have.
Tell me more.
So currently I'm the CEO for ASI.
You don't have to give me names.
Okay.
No, how much structures they've got. But just principles as to what it is that you are starting to look for. Where does the business go to in the next 100 years so that it reaches that 140-year mark? What are the characters of the searcher that you're looking for now? Could they be within the business now, or is it a matter of looking outside?
It's a hybrid of the two, Aubrey. There's individuals we've identified internal that embodies what the brand and the company stand for. But we also realize that there are gaps where we don't have the people on board currently to fulfill specific roles. And we are out there looking for them. And we're hoping to find through the ETA program that we get more of those people wanting to come on board.
Yeah, I think that's a key as well.
Yeah.
Because, the ASI Connect business is a vertical, not really, one business as it were. So we're actively looking for founders out there who are in a similar position to, the founder of Herman's business, and do want to retire and leave, the business to someone that under their stewardship can scale it. And that essentially would add to the Connect vertical and get it to that 140-year mark by bolstering it. Yeah.
What would catch your attention from a searcher's point of view? What would it be that would make Herman de Vries, the CEO of ASI Connect, say, "Hey, I'd like to give that youngster a chance"?
You can almost say it's that glint in the eye. People that have the passion for entrepreneurship and for the industry. And you can see that a mile away. Met with a gentleman that I cannot name, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago. And he's got a passion for what we have a passion for. to leave no South African without connectivity. And those are the individuals that we want.
Is that the driving thing in
That's the driving thing in the engine.
Yeah. Leave no South African without connectivity.
Yeah.
It's a big conversation, that the idea of connecting everybody. I mean, with all of the conversation about the ubiquity of AI and all of those kinds of things, I think it's going to be a big, almost religious thing, that everybody must be connected at some
For sure, because then every home turns into a school. It turns into an office. That's what we need.
Herman de Vries, it was excellent talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your insights. Just had a great conversation with Herman de Vries, the CEO of ASI Connect. And we've been talking about his journey. And we continue the conversation this afternoon with Wayne Mostert, the CEO of ASI Wealth. And of course, Jaco Rupping, the CEO of ASI Insure. But as always, my partner in crime and co-host is Tishalan Pillay, and he is the Director of Marketing at ASI. Tish, we continue with this conversation, and it appears to me that the process that at least our previous guest went through was very much a learning process, as it was for all parties involved, including ASI Capital.
Definitely. So we heard from Herman de Vries from the Connect vertical, and in previous episodes we had Nkuli and Angeline talk about the property vertical. So today's guests, Wayne and Jaco, are going to shed some light on their experiences in joining the ASI Financial Services vertical, which is the core business of the group. And as you can see, we've got two guests from that vertical, so also one of our most diverse verticals as well. But I'll let you introduce them as well.
Jaco, I want to start with you. I mean, you are the CEO of ASI Insurance. Give me a sense of what that business is all about and how it connects with the whole ASI group of companies.
So Aubrey, basically from an Insure perspective, we do the short-term insurance vertical of the business. We are 6 years old, if I can say it, in the business itself. And we had a journey where we were independent on our own from a vertical perspective, and then started moving towards an acquisition trail or looking at being acquired, and found ASI.
And what is it about that journey you think is a hallmark of the success, at least of the ETA model?
So I will sum it up in VIP. That is the vision that we received from Anthony. He provided us with a vision and a goal. The integration from that section that ran into the system of how do we integrate becoming an independent two-man run brokerage into becoming a corporate brokerage. And then of course the people in our business that made it happen and how it happened. From a broker's perspective, when we were independent, we were a smallish broker. And brokers tend to be all about survival. And we write for survival. The difficult part is you're always alone, trying to survive. And what ASI did is they gave us that comfort of having a proper platform to get going and stop focusing on survival, but start focusing on what is possible and what we can achieve. And I think that is what really made the difference from a move structure, from independent and alone to independent, corporate, and well-oiled.
I'm interested in that. I'll tell you why, Tish. I was having a conversation with a farmer who's an industrial farmer, who was saying to me, listen, the process of subsistence farming versus industrial farming requires a totally different mindset. And it sounds to me like that's what Jaco is referring to, that while you're just doing things for subsistence, for making sure that there is a meal at the end of the day, at the end of the month, there's a salary, when you have to corporatize, it's a whole new different way of thinking. And it appears that that's probably what the ASI capital structure played for Jaco.
Of course, it's a brilliant analogy, but a very interesting analogy, because that exactly describes the process of scaling a business. All businesses start in, the incubation stage, the startup phase, and they need a lot of capital and they need a lot of hard work, elbow grease from the founders. And you can compare that to subsistence farming, where you're doing all the work for yourself and you reaping all the rewards into your household. Taking that to industrial, commercial level farming is basically going from a startup through to an SME and then through to a big corporate company. And ASI has sort of perfected that, especially within the South African ecosystem or the South African market. We like to think that we have the formula that can take a business from a smaller level all the way up to large scale, definitely.
Jaco, I'm going to come back to you because I want to understand what were the insights that brought you to the level at which you are now as a corporate business that is no longer just about subsistence and just making sure that there is a paycheck at the end of the month. It looks like there's a broader vision for the company. I want to come back to that conversation. But Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. And ASI Wealth is probably one of the stronger pillars within the various verticals of the ASI Group. Tell us about your journey and how you encountered or how your encounter with ASI actually came about.
So interesting, yeah. Wealth is the newest addition to the greater ASI stable after Herman, though. But we just a bit of background. So started with Best Sure, which is now ASI Best Sure. We were part of the Best Sure stable. ASI acquired Best Sure for a very specific skill set that they haven't had in their business. And with us being the life division within within Best Sure, we effectively came along with the transaction. Now, at the time, we were a Sanlam Blue Star. We were a franchise tied to Sanlam directly. And, coming along with the Best Sure transaction, we needed to pivot our business completely. We needed to go from a tied franchise to an independent business. And Aubrey, effectively, in November 2023, we started all from scratch again. We started from zero. We had to give up our Blue Star. Not a lot of negotiation to get our clients to come along with us, but we effectively started from scratch. And we've been now 18 months, 20 months in with ASI, and I'm happy to say that we're probably 20 times bigger than we were prior to the acquisition of Best Sure. We're certainly bigger than some businesses that are 10 years in operation, and it's all made possible within the ASI ecosystem. And that's how we got to where we are today. We're 30 advisors right now. We need another 30 advisors. We have more business than we actually have people on the floor or feet on the ground to actually support that business. So it's a phenomenal place to be in. But yeah, that's our journey in an absolute nutshell. Started with one advisor in January 2024, and we're now 30. So yeah, that's in a nutshell how we got to for the wealth space within ASI.
One of the insights that came from my conversation with Herman was that growth is great, but growth is not always the thing that you want. You've grown phenomenally. I mean, from 1 to almost 30 and looking to become 60 in the short term. What insights could you share with us that make that growth that you guys are involved in kind of growth that's required not only for yourselves as ASI Wealth, but for the greater group?
So it's an interesting question. So because I've maybe got a perspective I want to give you, maybe a bit of left field quickly. The support structure that we have in ASI has made a lot of it. It's made all of it possible. Let's just put it out there. But I want to share, just maybe if I may, a bit of background to a previous experience I've had. So in 2023, decided to get out of the corporate space. I've always had an entrepreneurial flair, and decided to buy a business, and bought a real lemon. 7 years later, decided to call it
as one does from time to time.
7 years later, decided to call it a day, and losing about 3.5 million rand in the process, and starting all over again. And that's when I started with Best Sure at the time, when Rian and I, which is an old varsity friend of mine, got together and said we're going to start this life business. Why I want to share that with you is that when I acquired this business, you did the research, you did the homework, but you were like this. You were one person, and you had all the responsibility. The due diligence I do on myself. Had we done the due diligence that ASI has taught me to do, I would have probably not bought the business. Into the business, you make a lot of emotional decisions because there's all this pressure. You don't have a support structure. You've got nobody that you can go to and except your wife at home. And with respect to my wife, she doesn't understand that part of business. So, had I had the support structure that ASI offers us, very different experience I would have had, I probably wouldn't have bought the business to start with. So I want to just say that that's what the winning recipe is in ASI Wealth at the moment. I've got my partners that obviously support me. We've got the whole exco of ASI that at any given time I can lean on and say, we have this idea, we have this thought, and give us your insights. And we generally don't agree, but there's always seeing every side of the coin and then making the best decision going forward. And I think that's what we could ascribe our success to at the moment, because we are doing some really phenomenal stuff at the moment. It's because the support structure is there for me. So to answer your question, it's having people. I can go to Tishalan marketing, I can go to Tishalan business development, and I can sit down with them and have a conversation like we just did, I think, yesterday. And from that comes ideas. Okay, we can do that. And I know that we have made the best decision, because it's not only me that's made the decision. So hopefully that answers you in that regard, but it's the support.
But Aubrey, also from our side, and sorry to intervene, but from our side, we also have the independence of making choices and know that if we make the wrong choice, at least we haven't bet the house.
Yes.
And you've got that support where if you've made a wrong choice, it's not the end of the world. How do we fix this? And it's then fixed together.
Yeah.
And me and Wayne, we work together. We solve problems together. It's not like we're all alone and you know insuring, you know this and you know that. It's not how we
have to collaborate.
We collaborate.
Yeah.
Because what is in my world and what is in his world works the same, more or less.
It appears to me, Jaco, that the golden thread in both your stories is the story of support. It appears to me that the ETA model, just as a wealth transference model, is really not so much about capital. And you were saying that just now, Tish, that it's not so much about capital, but it's about the role that each of you as executives in a business, your collective experience comes to bear in helping each one make a decision. Would that be true?
Exactly. And that's the whole thing that I think that makes us great in our respectful businesses, is that when he doubles the business in a year, he gets the applause from everyone. We're not in competition with each other at all, because we have built a business that works with people, and people is our clients, and we place our clients first. The second thing, we've got people in the business, and that is our staff. And even in our motto, people, passion, purpose, we've got our people first. And that's the thing, is that we learned how to work together in harmony. And it's you see the white faces now at this point of time, but it's all around.
Yeah.
We are black-owned company, but we all work the same, and you work the same hours, and you work damn hard to achieve, because there is a vision. There is definitely a vision. There's a roadmap. That roadmap has been cleared up and been talked about, and we have an idea of where we want to be in the next 5 to 10 years as a South African strong company. But for us to achieve that, we needed to become part of ASI. And we needed to live and see and learn from people that has achieved this before us.
Sure. As you speak, all of the words that you speak sound like such an apt, shall we call it, model for all of the problems that we have in South Africa. But that's a conversation for another day. I want to ask Tish about what clearly sounds like the intentionality theme coming out of the conversation from both our guests. It appears to me that while there is the sense that there's a lovely kumbaya feeling, people coming together, working together, sharing ideas and so forth, but there seems to be a very strategic and tactical intentionality in the model, which is ATI as used by ASI.
Yes, definitely. I think, listening to the conversation, a saying came to mind. It takes a village to raise a child. Perhaps we at ASI are showing that it takes an ecosystem to scale a business. And in keeping with that metaphor as well, a family is a strange thing, because it's the closest people to you, and they provide that support structure, but it's also the people that you argue with, you have deep discussions about, emotions fly. But I think the golden thread there is that when you're part of an ecosystem like ASI Group, you have to give it your all. You have to put your heart into it. And it's something that Herman mentioned as well when you asked, what is the thing that we are looking for most in a searcher? He didn't say a qualification or, a certain amount of experience or industry experience or all of the usual things that you'd find on a LinkedIn profile or on a CV. He spoke about the glint in the eye and the passion for bringing connectivity to every South African. And I think we've been lucky as ASI to get partners like Herman, Jaco, Wayne, and all the other partners that we have, in that, besides all the technicalities, they've got the heart and the grit and the commitment to a better future for their people within the company and for, the public out there. And I think that's the beauty of what we're doing here.
While we are exchanging sayings, there's a saying that came out of the Great Lakes region of the African continent that says, if you want to go somewhere that is in short distance, go alone. But if you want to go far, then you must go together. And it appears that is the theme of the whole idea. I still haven't forgotten, Jaco, because I want to have a conversation with you about what was the mindset shift that came about, that you guys weren't just a two-man show anymore, and that you weren't just about subsistence anymore, but you were really starting to develop a greater vision as a corporate business. I want you to keep that in mind. So Wayne, I wanted to ask the question that relates specifically to ETA. What is it about the idea that if you were to be speaking to somebody that's got a business, that's looking to perhaps one day hand it over to somebody, what is it about the model as operated by ASI that you would advise an owner-founder to think about? Because my sense is that there's a lot of business people out there that have businesses that they've founded, that they're proud of, that they've lost blood, sweat, and tears for, but they don't even know how to think about the next stage of the existence of their business. What is it that you would advise? What is it that you would say are the issues that need to be thought about in that kind of a conversation?
So I think you've mentioned a lot of it, Aubrey, is that as a founder, it's like a child. If I just take our business as an example, I live, eat, and breathe it every single day of my life. And because of the ASI exposure, you have a bigger vision of it. The one thing you're asking Jaco is about, what is the mindset change? The mindset change is you think bigger. You get taught very quickly. You got to think a lot bigger than what you're thinking currently. Now, as an owner founder, if you're starting a business and it's you and maybe the family, you're kind of contained to that. You kind of live in your world. You build your business that maybe gives you a good lifestyle, and it's like a child that you raise. The thing that people need to think about then is when the time comes for succession, and we've seen in many situations that the children don't want to take over. My dad, as an example, had a business that was in manufacturing, and he said, we just never get into manufacturing, it's got too many headaches. Then they get their kids to become lawyers, doctors, and they get them into a different profession, so there is no successor. But the owner wants to see their legacy live on in that business. And I think that's the important thing, is that it's not for nothing. It's now not because I'm out of the business or I've got to leave the business, it's going to come to an end. And I think that's what they maybe don't think about, and they do, but they don't have a solution for it. And I think that's the big thing, is that you want to see that the hard work, the years that you've put in, maybe benefits the next generation, maybe benefits more to the people that you've employed. I remember my dad with the factory as well. He had 30, 40 people working for him. They were important to him. So I think all those factors, Aubrey, needs to be taken into consideration, that you want to hand it over to a next generation that's going to love it the way that you do and cherish it the way that you do. And that handover process, I think, is the important part, where you could hand over that passion, to teach that passion. That would be the things that I would, if I had to put myself in that situation right now, those are the things that would be important to me, is that I could sit down maybe 10, 15 years from now in retirement and go, this business is still successful and I'm very proud of that. So those would be for me the main factors, I would think.
Jaco, I wanna really zoom into your unique experience, in that you and your partner were just two guys. You were running a business. It served your needs, basically. But how and what happened for you to start to think a little bigger And what did that mean for you? What did it mean to think bigger for Jaco and your partner that has made ASI Finance or Insure, a corporate leaning business that has prospects for growth that are quite exponential?
So let's go back 6 years. 6 years ago, myself and my partner John, we had a good business. We were successful in our own rights. So why sell? For what reason? Why will you do something like that? Or why will you look at a partner that you partner up with? So there was trades that we were looking for in our partnership and what we were looking for from a perspective of partnering up with someone. And we found ASI, or ASI found us. I can't remember which way around it was.
Found each other.
But we found each other. And in the beginning it was tough. I must say, the negotiations was, what can I say? It was difficult, because now you sit and you realize, is this what you want to do? But like
the loss of the independence.
Yeah, the loss of the independence. And you're worried. The thing is that you are worried as well that, well, what will happen? Am I now just a number in a corporate business, or what happens here if we do this deal? Is it going to be good or bad? And the thing that I can say is, I wonder why we haven't done it earlier. Because what happened from a transition perspective is, as we joined ASI and we got that vision, that VIP treatment, we realized that, listen, we can be more than what we are, and we can reach, like Wayne said, we had the support structure that gave us access to clients that we had no access to. And suddenly the floodgates were open and we needed to catch the fish that was coming out here. And I'm saying it with respect. We needed to then we realized then that, listen, this is not going to be a small business anymore. And like Wayne also said, it was quick. We needed to work hard. We put 16 hours a day in it. We want to leave a legacy in the business. And it's not just a ASI Insure or ASI Wealth or ASI Connect or ASI Property, whatever vertical we've got in the business. We are ASI. And that's the legacy as an ASI, from founder to successor to the next generation successor. We're already planning for that. I'm not even close to retirement. He's very close to retirement. But I'm not very close to retirement. But we're already planning for our successors. We're already intentionally looking for that person that will take over from us. We're already training them.
You said something very, very important. You weren't even thinking about becoming bigger. You were worried about, for example, are you going to keep your sense of independence and the ability to make decisions for your business? You're worried about whether or not you're going to be just another statistic, another number in the business. I get that. But what happened for you guys to start thinking bigger? What was the bigger that wasn't there before? And I ask this question for maybe a business out there that is a 2-man show, a 5-man show, that is doing okay, relatively speaking. What is it that they're not seeing at this stage that they'll say to me one day, we wish we could have seen that 5 years earlier? What is it that they don't see?
Well, what we didn't see is that we can be bigger. We didn't believe that we could grow bigger and also we didn't have the tools in our tools shop to grow bigger. We needed to learn on the job, and thanks to ASI, we had the support structure to learn. The biggest thing that you've got is fear. And I think the fear was more involved here from that side, because we were comfortable. We were very comfortable from what we were from an income perspective. We didn't have a lot of people working for us. So we had in total, I think we were 8 people in the business, 2 brokers and 6 supporting staff members. The fear was there from, if you go bigger, you might lose focus and then you need to employ more people. And it becomes a situation where you're just worried about, well, must I grow bigger? Must I not? And then also the question, how do I grow bigger? And with ASI, because they've been there already, and they've been big, and they are big, we could just catch a fish, hook it, and then reel it in, and then start going forward quicker. And we could catch the big fishes quicker.
Can I come in on that? So Jaco's touched on the fear, and the fear is definitely a reality. I think there's another side to it, and it's called belief. So I remember when I started, we just went into conference after, and Anthony said, you're going to stand up in the front there in conference, you're going to tell everybody you're going to employ 200 advisors. I'm going, what? Are you mad? 200 advisors. Needless to say, I went up to stay on stage and I said, we're going to get 200 advisors. Fast forward from February last year to today, I wish I had 200 advisors in my business. Anthony, through the vision that he has and the business has created the belief that you can do that. And the minute you believe it, things start happening. It's like putting it out in the universe. It's going to happen. You just got to put it out there. Yeah. And if we had 200 advisors in our business today, I'd be able to keep all of them busy. So there's also creating that belief that there's somebody there. Because when Anthony, I said, are you mad? I remember it so distinctly. I was sitting in my home office. Anthony phoned me the night before. He says, we've got to prepare for tomorrow quickly. I want you to say this because this is where we're going. And I'm going, and that's not the way I see it. And he convinced me. He says, that's the way I see it. And I think that's the way we're going. And I believe in you. And he created the belief in me that I can do it firstly, and created the belief that the business can do it. And there's somebody that just invests in you and go, but you can. And this is the reason why you can. I think that creates a different mindset because it's all in your own mind. And I think that's what made the difference for me, is that somebody believed in me that I can do it, and then created the belief that I could. And that's kind of what so it's not just the fear.
Tish, it appears to me that, and it's not a uniquely South African reality, but it looks like that in business we tend to operate from a mentality of scarcity rather than a mentality of abundance. And the story that I'm hearing from both our guests is that what happened is that ASI said, listen, guys, you don't have to drink sparingly. You're in the ocean. And what I'm hearing is that is not just a statement of intent or a vision, but it's backed up by strategy. It's backed up by tactic. It's backed up by facts and figures. And could that be perhaps the difference here? Because I suppose these are things that we've all learned over time, scarcity mentality versus an abundance mentality. But the problem is usually, how do we actually execute the plan that brings us to the vision?
Exactly. And I think a big factor in it is that you don't know what you don't know sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do know what you don't know and you work towards it. But a lot of the time, especially with the big things in life, sometimes that fear is that, I actually don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's where I think having an ecosystem around you is very, very important. Capital is easy to come by. You can get capital from a variety of places. And the mindset on the continent is that, if we had more access to capital, we'd be more successful. But sometimes, when you look at business and the people that have really done amazing things with business, sometimes it's just a case of, it's a necessity that I need to succeed. It's not a want, or it's not about, reading a book or going to school or a mindset or a belief thing. It's just that, I have to succeed and there's no other choice. And I think that's what makes the difference in the ASI ecosystem, is that we've got a lot of people, not only from, the core original group, but also from the founders as well, that have integrated into the ecosystem. It's that, it's that belief and that necessity to succeed that drives all of the change. And then obviously when you have experience that comes into play there of people who have already done it, it then just creates this environment where, all things are possible. And it shifts everybody, not only, the exco or the founders, but everybody in the business at every level. It trickles down, and suddenly you've got this force, this army of business people, or suits, if you will, that just have this tenacity that anything is possible, and they move from scarcity to abundance, and obviously the business follows suit.
We live in a very difficult time globally, just in terms of the economics of the world. It's a difficult time. I mean, the tariff wars, the literal wars that are taking place in the world, all of these different things can very easily take over our mindset and push us into a mindset of scarcity. We've got many unresolved issues on the African continent, in South Africa itself, that can really make somebody believe, I'm not wanting to invest here. This is just too scary. There's too much scarcity, and the prospects for abundance are looking like they're going further and further away. How did you guys get over the fear of knowing that we know how to do our business. Here are these guys that saying that they'll buy into our business, but they don't know our business. Yeah, they might know how to be brokers. They might have had experience in brokerage elsewhere, but they don't know our business in terms of its own unique characteristics. How do you get to a point where you are able to humble yourself? Maybe these guys know a little bit more than me. Maybe this network is such that it has more information than me as an individual. When you've been successful in your business and these guys are suggesting that they'd like a stake of your business, how did you overcome that hurdle?
From our side, leap of faith. We needed to take a leap of faith. We were in discussion, and there was a point where a decision needed to be made, and the decision was yes or no. And the no, that's the comfortable side of the decision. The yes, it's uncomfortable and it hits you afterwards. But I said yes, why? You do ask that question, why? Why did I say yes to this? And then that's when you start taking that leap of faith. I've said yes, you take that and that's my decision, and then you start working from there. I can say thanks for that decision. That decision was a difficult one. It was first a no, and then it became a yes, and then it became that leap of faith, and then we tripled our business.
The faith theme is very strong in this conversation, believing, faith. But I imagine when you're a businessman, after all of the platitudes that make the faith conversation so powerful, you still want to have facts and figures that are going to back that faith up. What was it that made you ultimately say, right, the case has been made, it makes sense, all of the issues seem to make sense, and they bolster my belief, they bolster my faith in this relationship? There must have been something at some point that said, now I sign.
So firstly, just to jump on the faith side of things, a lot of prayer initially. You got to get confirmation that you're making right decisions. But I think what convinced me ultimately, and it wasn't a hard decision for me. In fact, we breezed into it. I think for our partner, Rian, in the short-term business, it took him a year to make the decision. So he had a lot harder journey in terms of making the decision. He had a 30-year-old business. For us, we were a lot newer, and my nature is looking for opportunities. For me, it was a pretty easy decision. I looked at ASI as a business. I looked at the Exco, and I thought, these are the guys that have all the right credentials. They don't just talk a good game. You can see it within their actions. And what I mean by that, it's not all friendly. It's not nothing. But if the principle is the principle and the decisions, they stick with that. So there's a lot of ethics involved. And I think those are the things that got me. But I saw the opportunity in the business. With us being the B2C, primarily B2C business in the group, there's a lot of individuals within the greater group benefits that they have in place that we saw as the opportunity. And my partner, Francois, we just grabbed at it and said that this is the way to go. So for us, really, it wasn't a very hard decision to integrate and convert. And I will never, ever doubt that decision, ever, because it's the best decision I've ever made. So my journey is a little different to Jaco's. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision because I saw how the people in the business walk the talk.
I've been having the conversation about ETA now for 5 episodes. And there's no doubt in my mind that it's a win-win situation. But the conversations that I've had have made me understand that it's not an easy road. People speak authentically and frankly with each other, and it's real business. It's not a kumbaya session. It's really about making sure that you make the right decisions for the right reasons at the right time. It sounds to me like that's the journey that both of you have gone through. And we can throw all sorts of cliches and sayings at it. And I suppose cliches and sayings are that because they've proven true over a period of time. Who, in your opinion, Wayne, is the candidate for the ETA? Who is that person? Because it appears to me it's not for everybody.
No, definitely. I think the first trait you have to have, Aubrey, is resilience. You got to roll with the punches. You can't, after the first hurdle, and there are many daily, roll over and go, this is not going to work. You got to have an absolute belief that it's going to work. You got to just, with your whole heart, believe that it's going to work, and there can't be a plan B. It's you're in it, and there's no go, well, I'm going to do this, but maybe I'll just do this and make sure that I'm okay. So there's no plan B. You know, you burn the ships when you hit the beach, you know. So, but resilience for me is probably the single most important quality that somebody has to have to go, if I get into this, I know it's going to be an incredibly hard grind for 5 to 10 years. It doesn't happen in the first couple of months. You know, with our youth today, instant gratification, they want everything now and they want it perfect right now. It's not that. You got to realize that you're going to have to be the skivvy initially. You're going to have to do all the hard work, the dirty work, like we started. It was just me and one other person in the office, and we had to grind. So that for me is the first most important trait that somebody has to have, is that resilience and willing to grind and just get up every day, put a smile on your face, in a good mood, and just go through it all again.
That sounds to me like that would be the searcher.
That would be the searcher, absolutely. So the searcher needs to be somebody that can go, no matter what, we're going to make this work. And then obviously some good business acumen. Go read that book a month, apply that book a month. And there's some really good material out there. You know, Anthony introduced a book to me that's become my second Bible. It's called a book called Scaling Up. And it's probably the best book I've ever written. And I've read it now. I'm busy actually reading it the 4th time, and every time you pick up new stuff. So read, learn. But for me, there's nothing that outweighs the fact that you got to grind. You just absolutely have to grind, and every single day. There's no holidays.
Talk to me about the founder. What should be uppermost in their minds, in their attitude?
A willingness to hand over. You know, if I just take our business and where I sit, it's very hard for me sometimes to hand over a responsibility to somebody else in the business. We're scaling. So I'm starting to get to a point where some of my advisors are taking a bit more of a senior responsibility and handing over some stuff for them. And I've got to really work hard to not go and interfere and let him make the mistakes and let him drop the ball. I think the first thing is that you've got to be willing to want to let go at some point. You've got to understand that there is an end for you in this, and be willing to transfer that knowledge, spending the time mentoring, teaching. I think that's probably a mind shift change that you have to make. And I put myself in that position. If I had to do it, I'd have to make that shift to go, okay, this is the guy person who's going to succeed me. I need to make sure that this guy's geared and ready to go. So I've got to just pour everything into it, and you've got to be willing to do that. So that for me would probably be the willingness to do, Aubrey, if I had to sum it up in simple terms.
Tish, 300 million Rand has been set aside as a fund to go to the next phase of ASI's ETA process. 300 million. It's a lot of money. All right. What is, in your opinion, the biggest challenge for ASI at this point of the game, with all of the learnings that ASI has itself gotten through the process to find more Jacos and Hermans and Waynes?
I think, listening to the conversation, not just in today's episode, but, all the previous conversations we've had, is that it sticks out that this is not for everyone. We've got a lot of businesses out there. We've got a lot of youth out there. We're either professionals, entrepreneurs that are in the economy. But even with all of that, you can kind of imagine that it's difficult to find another Jaco, another Wayne, another Herman. So I think the biggest difficulty is that it's very niche, and it's going to be very difficult to find people who demonstrate the qualities that can make a success of the model. I think we've done about 15 of these deals with a 95% success rate, and we'd like to keep those, stats going. So it's going to be very challenging to find the right caliber of searcher, but I would say even more difficult to find the right founder. I think, the youth, they're hungry for opportunity. Their whole future's ahead of them. So it's easy for them to take the leap of faith and jump into something and give it their all. But I think it's very difficult for a retiring founder to have that willingness to let go. I think that's where we're going to find the most difficulty. But I would say as well that, we talk about the businesses, we talk about the founders, the searchers, the employees, etc. But we also need to think about what this does for the market, because we're talking about faith and belief, and in financial services, it's a promise that we make to our clients. It's something that, it's all about trust. We are selling trust, essentially. That's our product, that's our service, is trust, So if you think about the ecosystem and how we bring in so many different business leaders into one business, just think about the impact that makes on a client. Now as ASI Financial Services, we serve corporates, so B2B clients and B2C clients, especially Jaco and Wayne. They also have a B2C lines of business. But if you think how the market can benefit from something like this, it's, we've got a corporate client that we do employee benefits for, but then we've got the ASI Wealth team that also goes and does individual financial planning to each individual within that corporate, fighting that battle of financial wellness, which is a big problem in our country. Yeah. You've got Jaco coming in with the other lines of business. You've got ASI Property that can help somebody with their homes and managing estates. So I think it's important that we think about the searcher and the founder, the 300 million fund that's available, but also if we think about long term what this is going to do for the country and what it's going to do for Africa, we need more and more ecosystems like this and group businesses like this that can impact people's lives internally and externally. I think with that in mind, that could really transform Africa.
This last round of questions is really precisely about this country and this continent. We've gone through some hard times as a country, as a continent, and very, very often the problems that we've experienced have been articulated by you from a business perspective. But I suppose from a social perspective, we need to deal with issues of ego, of being able to believe that we have better prospects as a country and a continent. But maybe from you, Jaco, somebody might say to me, Aubrey, you've just had 3 white guys talk about business success in this conversations. How do we find people who are from this continent, who perhaps come from more difficult backgrounds, who have not had the education and the exposure to business in the same way that you have? How do we find those individuals? And how do we help them find us in order to be able to take up the opportunity that's given here by the ASI model of ETA?
Aubrey, it's quite a difficult question. But
Difficult?
it's a difficult situation. Yeah, so you left it to last and say, hey, Whitey, talk to me. Aubrey, so from ASI, remember, we don't look at color. I want to place this now correct, how you see the possibilities. Potential. And the potential, that's the right word. My English is running out.
My English also runs out from time to time.
But that is where we see the potential in people. And we've seen it now. Let me take Alice, for argument's sake. She started working at ASI in the call center. She was then introduced to me. And I saw that this lady can do this. She's got something, and that's that sparkle in the eye. I saw that. And now she's one of our best claims handlers in the business. And she's running the biggest claims book as well. And that transition was done over a 3-year period. But what was that sparkle? That was the willingness that he explained about. It's that willingness to learn and to set egos aside. Because egos is not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get us as a business or us as South Africa or anything anywhere. We need to start setting the egos aside and say, okay, let's talk about the problems, but have real meaningful conversations. We can't carry on and on about all the problems that we've got if we don't find the solutions. We've got problems. Yes, lots of it. And some people have the solutions, but we don't want to listen to that solutions because we like talking about the problems. It's the old saying that your brain loves the problems, but when you come to the solution, it seems like work. and then you suddenly want to run away. And that's what we do from ASIs. We are happy to talk about the problems, but we're also happy to say, if you've got a problem, bring the solution as well. Because that's what we look at. If we talk.
Which is the responsibility, I suppose, of any situation that is going to be resolved, right? You can't be talking about the problem ad nauseum. You've got to have the attitude that says, sure, we understand the problem, but what is the solution to the problem? And I hear you, that how we sometimes can get so comfortable in the warmth of talking about the problem, right? It becomes easy, and the finding of the solution can be very, very challenging. Wayne, I want to come to you and say, the vision here, as has been discussed in many other episodes, is not only to look at South Africa, but the rest of the continent with many, many challenges, that is in a globe that has got many, many challenges. From your perspective, how do we spread the sunshine? How do we find those people that are the Alices, that have the glint in their eye, that have the fire in their belly? Because in a previous conversation with Tish and Anthony, I made the comment to say that this is a business undertaking. Yes, it must have social and economic impact in the most positive way, but it's a business undertaking. Therefore, it requires people with certain traits, with certain characteristics, with certain skills perhaps. But you and I know that this continent has got real challenges, and you let me know what the challenges you see are the ones that we're going to have to overcome. But we have a responsibility to find those Alices. How do we find them? How do we find them with all of the challenges that we have domestically, continentally, and globally?
It's also a very, very interesting and tough question. Firstly, I just want to say that there are many people out there. And I look at our 30 advisors we have right now. Every one of them can step into my shoes and do what I do. And black, brown, white, female, male, doesn't matter. We have such great talent in this country. It's about, for me, it's shaking the victim mentality for me. I think that's, for me, the big thing. It's shaking that, to go, yes, we have tough times. My dad grew up in very tough times. We've got many people in South Africa who really have a lot of challenges. But if you get rid of the victim mentality to go, I'm a victim of this, rather going, but I can change this. I think that's the thing that we need. It's a change of mindset, because it's all in here, ultimately. I've got some really incredible people in my business. Gentlemen as young as 22 in my business. And I never thought I'd employ anybody under 28 as a financial planner, because, let's be honest, who takes advice from a 22-year-old? Sure. But the belief this person has in what they do and how they do it, I'm looking at them going, you're the future leader of our business. It's all in the mind, Aubrey. And if we can just change our mindset and just remove the fact that we're victims of our circumstances and take ownership of it, I think we can change anything around. For me, it's all about mindset.
Tish, as we close, and gentlemen, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really have. I think it's so important to understand that while there is a model for wealth transference, for the continuation of entrepreneurial legacies, all of those opportunities that are presented by the ASI ETA model, we do need to do a lot of internal work. We need to deal with the issue of faithlessness. We need to deal with the issue of victimhood. We need to deal with the issue of egos. We need to deal with the issues of simply not having a plan. Knowing that at some point I've got to hand over, but I don't know how to even think about that. We need to have those conversations, which is what I believe the ASI Group, ASI Capital has had to think deeply about in order to be able to make this offering of the ASI ETA model. From your perspective as the ASI Director of Marketing, Tish, where to from here? I mean, the idea works. We've heard from the different speakers that we've had how it's worked for them. But we've also understood that it's not a walk in the park. It's not a kumbaya session. It's hard business. What are the challenges for you as ASI, given the humongous task that we have before us, but as humongous is the opportunity? What are the challenges?
So I think at this stage, we've been a couple months into this, having these conversations, airing it on all our platforms, and also on some national platforms as well. And I think the next stage for us now is to really start seeing the applications come in. So we've seen a few applications from both searchers and founders. The next step for me is to go out there and look for them. So we're planning a series of road shows where we're going to go to the major universities in South Africa and spread the word about the ETA Search Fund, obviously for the searchers. And we're also looking at, joining the communities of business councils and forums where, business leaders get together and also speak to them about the opportunity on the founder side. But I think the biggest challenge is just to get the word out there. And spread the net as far as it can go, and really start to reach those people that resonate with what we're doing here, and having them join. I think, as you mentioned, 300 million rand is a lot of money, but we'd like to have a few more success stories to share over the coming months. And knowing our CEO and knowing ASI, as soon as that 300 million is spent, we're probably going to come back with double, triple the amount. So I'd like to see us get there as fast as possible, but it depends on, the public out there. So to all the searchers and the founders out there, get in touch with us and let's make some magic happen.
Well, that brings us to the end of the 5th episode of the ASI Biz-Exchange Podcast. I want to echo the sentiments by Tish as he says, this is the time to act. This is the time to make sure that you get your applications in there. This is the time to ask questions, because I think, as many of my guests have said today, that it is a mindset issue. It is the putting away of the victim mentality. It is making sure that you put your ego in check, so that we can take up this opportunity that is going to give us the abundance that this continent and this country so desperately needs. Thank you very much for joining us. See you next time.